Team Liquid's turn to ban. IG's turn to ban.
Welcome to the initial 3 group stages, the last day. It's game 2 of IG versus Team Liquid. This is an important game for both teams. This game will determine which one of them goes into the upper bracket and the lower
10
bracket.
seconds remaining.
Tongfu, assuming, not necessarily a safe assumption, but assuming they
5
win their
seconds
second game
remaining.
versus Rattlesnake, they will be 8-6, and that will place them
Reserve
safely
time.
into the upper bracket. Right now, all 3 of them, actually, Liquid, IG, and Tongfu, are 7-6. So the outcome of this game will leave one team at 8-6 and one team at 7-7. And as mentioned, assuming that Tongfu wins their second game, they will be 8-6 and they will be secure. If they go 1-1, they'll be 7-7, and so the loser of this will then have to play one more game against Tongfu. At least one more game, because there's in the case of a tie between 2 teams between the upper and lower bracket, they play extra games. I don't know whether it's a best of 1 or a best of 3, or maybe it's 2. I don't know.
Team Liquid's turn to ban.
So it's an important game, and whoever wins this will have their spot secured. And no one wants to go to the lower bracket where nothing but a best of 1 separates you from elimination from the international. And
10 seconds remaining.
IG looking pretty strong in game 1. Liquid made a number of
5
poor
seconds
decisions,
remaining.
which I guess I won't rehash.
Reserve time.
But feeding Ferrari a godlike streak within 15 minutes, that's never a good game plan. He picked up an ultra kill and a triple kill in 2 separate team fights.
Liquid's turn to pick.
And a start like that on Shadow Fiend, that's the best you could possibly ask for.
IG's turn to pick.
That Shadow Fiend pick really paid off. Always happy to see a Shadow Fiend. Liquid this game, they've got the Weaver again. Undoubtedly going to be played by TC once more. Hopefully he'll spend more time farming and less time trying to find kills and diving towers. They've also got the Rubik and the Treant Protector. Treant Protector will hopefully prevent some of the deaths that TC had in the previous game.
10 seconds remaining.
Treant Protector, however, versus a Chen and Alchemist, that's a lot of ways to burn
5
through
seconds
the living
remaining.
armor charges. And if IG look to group up early
Reserve
on,
time.
that's one weakness that Treant Protector has, is that he's very pro gank support. Likes to support dives around the map and stop split push, but in terms of determined push, is not actually that effective.
Team
And
Liquid's
the trend
turn
continues with
to
the Dragon Knight pickup from IG. The corrosive poison, the debuff that's applied from Dragon Knight when he pops Dragon Form, that burns through the living armor as well on towers, as well as heroes, both. So IG have a number of ways to burn through the living armor. It doesn't make Treant Protector useless, but he really needs to get
10
early levels
seconds
if
remaining.
he ever wants to have any utility out of the living armor. So
5
Liquid need
seconds
to run their
remaining.
lanes in such a way that Treant Protector is finding his farm.
Reserve time.
Looking at some of the bans here.
10 seconds remaining.
No surprise to see OD and lots of... Ooh, it's a Slark! Fuck the
IG's
bans, I'm going to talk
turn
about Slark.
pick.
I haven't seen Slark yet this tournament, so pretty excited about that, just for the mere nature of seeing Slark. Slark had a brief surge of popularity where he was getting picked by a lot of different teams. Disappeared for a little bit. It seems like teams have kind of figured him out just a little bit. But he's very mobile, really strong ganker. If you get his
10
level 6 as
seconds
soon as
remaining.
possible, then that's when he's most effective. And
5
he will
seconds
likely go
remaining.
mid, which would put him up against Dragon Knight. He can have a little bit of trouble in that lane until he hits his 6.
Reserve time.
And the reason the 6 is so important is just for the HP regen of the... I don't actually know, the Shadow Dance. Gives him passive regen and movement speed, as long as he's not in
Team
vision.
Liquid's turn to ban.
And he has to have a solo lane in order to get that 6 by the time it's nighttime. And nighttime is a good deal for him, since it reduces vision and increases the amount of time that he's proccing the
10
Shadow Dance
seconds
passive.
remaining.
IG will pick up a Timber Saw, and it makes me wonder where
5
this Dragon Knight
seconds
is going to
remaining.
lane, because it's very likely it could be a Timber Saw off lane. Versus Weaver, he
Reserve
does
time.
pretty well, and particularly
5
Geminate
seconds
Attack, that's
remaining.
proccing the reactive armor twice, so it's extra HP regen for Timber Saw. Now that I'm looking at it, I do think it'll probably be a Timber Saw off lane with Dragon Knight in the mid, and Alchemist down the bottom lane. So the lanes are looking pretty good for IG so far. Timber Saw could also go mid, and he would perform very well versus Slark. But I think Dragon Knight could do just as well, and you can't really send Dragon Knight anywhere else. Certainly not against Weaver. But I'm trying to figure out what the specific rationale of the Slark pick is in this game. He should do fine versus Dragon Knight mid, but I worry for him in terms of the stuns. It really, like everything he does, his performance in this game will depend on really clutch Dark Pact usage.
10 seconds
Now Slark
remaining.
versus Alchemist, he does have a nice little advantage in that
5 seconds remaining.
pairing because the concoction is so easy to see coming, so you can pop the Dark Pact pretty well ahead of time, and you won't be too worried about the
IG's
stun.
turn
The
to
Dragon Tail from Dragon Knight, however, is instant. And Timber Saw, he doesn't apply any stuns, he's just pure damage, and I think he's going to have a pretty good time chasing down this Slark. Liquid rounded out with a Windrunner, so they've got a pretty decent amount of lockdown, telekinesis, pounce, and shackle. Not the most reliable, but it's between the three of those, they should have a pretty good time, a decent chance of locking down
10
Timber Saw.
seconds
I don't
remaining.
know. I'm pretty sure that Timber Chain overwrites
5 seconds remaining.
the leash on pounce.
Reserve time.
We'll have to see, but if it, even if it does, the shackle plus telekinesis is a decent chance of locking down Timber Saw. There's also the overgrowth. I believe Timber Chain can also go through that.
10 seconds remaining.
So they will have a little bit of trouble locking down Timber Saw, but everyone else on
5
IG,
seconds remaining.
there's a pretty fair amount of disabled to be faced up against. It's going to be an interesting game. Liquid needs to, once more, to have a good laning phase. Maybe this will be an aggressive tri-lane. I kind of hope not, because Treant Protector needs those secure levels and will be slowed down a lot if he's a part of an aggressive tri-lane. So it looks like an off-lane Windrunner with a safe lane, a defensive tri-lane, and Slark mid, which would put Timber Saw in the off lane, which against a tri-lane it's a little risky. They don't have, they've only got the telekinesis and the leech seed, and that's not going to be enough to take him down.
10
So good
seconds
Timber Chain
remaining.
usage gives him a pretty good chance,
5 seconds remaining.
but it's going to be risky, and he's going to have to be very careful in that tri-lane. But same thing for Windrunner in the off lane. Concoction,
Prepare for battle.
any rotation from Chuan on Chen Chuan. If he gets the right creep, it could be pretty deadly, and well, we'll see how it goes. I think IG, the late game probably favors them somewhat. They've got a lot. The big X factor. There's another phrase I need to find another term for. Is, I think, this Timber Saw. If he can have a lot of impact, then and start rotating, get his levels up. That's the most important thing for him in this off lane. It's unfortunate, I think, for Timber Saw to not really be getting much farm.
30 seconds to battle.
Maybe he'll get lucky. Maybe he'll be able to find it. If he can, then his impact will be a lot greater. And if it's a 1v1, then it's really good for him. This is starting to look like an aggressive tri-lane from Liquid, which worries me. The components of it are fine. They've got 2 stuns, and they have the heal from the Leech Seed, which helps their sustain. But like I said, you need levels
The
on Treant
battle
Protector.
begins.
And it's going to be a safe lane Dragon Knight. And so it is. It's actually going to be a Alchemist mid versus this Slark. That's actually more trouble for Slark than even a Dragon Knight. So good response by IG. Ferrari on Alchemist, he's just going to get the Acid Spray, lay that down, and it's going to be a pain in the ass for Slark. He can't do anything about that. He's a melee, so he's going to be eating a lot of that damage, and really needs to be afraid of the Concoction. The Pounce does not disjoint Concoction. Nothing does, so can be a dangerous lane for Korok. He needs to get a bottle up as soon as possible. Down in the bottom lane, we're going to have Faith on Visage, Zhou on Dragon Knight, and Chuan on the Chen. It will be a little bit of a rough lane for IG to start off, particularly depending on what creeps Chuan gets, and actually he manages to get a troll right off the bat. That's very good for him. Perfect creep, especially against Windrunner. That goes through a ranged ensnare, goes through Windrun very nicely. The fortunate thing for Liquid in this tri lane, so Bulba's on Windrunner, Fluff and Stuff is on Rubik, and IX Mike on Tree Protector. Bulba is going to be able to challenge these pulls pretty easily. They don't even have to ward it up. They can just steal the creeps. The attack animation on Windrunner is so nice. The attack point is very short. The amount of time that it takes to start your attack very low, which means it's easy to just step in and throw in a last hit to steal the creeps. But also, more importantly, the power shot chews through the trees, makes it easy to snipe those creeps from long range. Chuan's being a huge dick with this shockwave. Sends the Satyr Tormentor solely just to bother Liquid, and is successful in doing so. Forces out the living armor on Bulba first, but there's no one else that. I mean, Slark will be very dependent on the living armor, so any usages they can force down on the bottom lane is going to make Korok suffer. That is the one factor I didn't consider. The living armor for Korok will help him out quite a lot in mid. The Acid Spray chews through the charges, particularly early on. I think the lower levels of it, if he's inside the Acid Spray, he's going to have trouble dealing with that all that damage. Although I'm not sure about this. I think there's a minimum damage that you have to hit in order for the living armor charges to be used up. And I don't think level one Acid Spray actually uses that up. I think it's 20 or above. I have to check on that. Does it say? Stun is charging up from Ferrari. What is he going to do with it? Just chasing out Korok. Actually, it's going to land in the Acid Spray. We'll force out the Pounce. Chasing him out of lane constantly. I think this lane is going to go heavily in favor of Ferrari. Up at top, YYF on Timbersaw versus TC on Weaver. It's going to be a close lane. There's going to be a lot of harass back and forth, but I think good Timber Chain plus Whirling Death can really hurt TC. He's actually gone for 2 levels of reactive armor, so that Geminate attack, every time he hits him, it's giving him extra bonus regen all the time, and extra armor. It's really effective versus Weaver. I think that's part of the reason we see a lot of Timbersaw, is because this reactive armor really very effective versus him. Nonetheless, TC should be able to get his farm, especially with the living armor helping out. Will undo a lot of that harass. But there's a lot of people that IX Mike needs to be using living armor on. The sooner he can get his level 3, the better. So to start things off, YYF is 10-3 versus TC's 19-9, so TC's got a pretty good start in this lane. Ferrari over mid, 19-1 versus Korok's 13-6. Now, as more levels get acquired in the living armor, I expect that to go a little bit better for Korok. Ooh, Fluff and Stuff. He denies the double damage rune. Throws back. It doesn't actually throw back Ferrari, but that doesn't matter. He gets up the hill. It's a self-stun here. Pounce onto Ferrari. Dark Pact is used. This could be first blood. Oh, actually it goes the opposite way. Korok ends up going down. Eats the soul assumption from face. So good rotation from IG. Now, ooh, a double kill, actually. Wow, Chuan, he will go down. This is a mess of a fight. Dragon Tail onto Bulba. He doesn't have any more mana for Windrun, but he does have phase. He's pretty fast. One more Breath of Fire, and Zhou will not be able to catch up to him. He's just not quite fast enough. So it's a 2-for-1 in favor of IG, and they pick up the first blood. Who is that going down? So Chuan does go down to Bulba. That's still a pretty favorable trade for Liquid, particularly because that's Korok going down. That's the solo mid, and that gives a lot of yet more advantage to Ferrari in this mid lane. It's also a lot of experience for Joe. He happened to be there for those 2 kills. Although I think actually the second kill from Faith, very wise to chase down Fluff and stuff. But I think that ended up being a solo kill, so I don't know that the rest of IG actually got experience for that. So as a result of that, it looks like Liquid's abandoning the tri lane, at least for the moment. Fluff and Stuff heads up top, but he smokes down towards middle. I don't know that they can get this kill. They don't have the damage. He is going to be able to camp up for the top rune, which is about the only chance that Liquid would have at getting the rune. It's going to be a regen, which he will deny to Ferrari. It's a useful little deny there. So Fluff will be staying top, not going to rotate down the bottom. So it's dual lanes now for for Liquid. I think it's a pretty decent circumstance for them. It'll get more experience on IX Mike than he would in this aggressive tri lane, and should have a pretty good time of it. Bulba is certainly not going to die. Too mobile. It's impossible for Joe to stay on top of him. With the Dragon Form and Dragon Tail, it's possible, but he needs way more damage, which Faith can provide. He's actually about to hit level 5. Pretty good levels on Faith so far. Chuan, he's been doing a lot of stacking in the jungle. Was doing some tornado farming of those camps. He's getting close to his level 6, which is pretty good news for IG. I think Liquid may be interested in doing some dives. YYF up at top. He's falling pretty far behind TC, which surprises me a little bit. I think with the Whirling Death, it's because he's leveling the Timber Chain. This is why. So I kind of disagree with this choice here. The Timber Chain is really good, and it emphasizes the fact that YYF wants to rotate to other lanes. And if he wants to be ganking other lanes, he does need max Timber Chain. It increases the range by quite a bit. But his competition in this lane is really harmed by only having one level in Whirling Death. I mean, 2 and 2 is probably enough. So I kind of feel like he doesn't actually need to max out the Timber Chain like this. But nevertheless, he's actually skipped Chakram. That's another decision I kind of disagree with. Is waiting for when he'll gank. Picks it up at level 7.
Bottom tower has fallen.
But Chakram is a lot of damage. I mean, if all you do is land the Chakram, then you're set up for a really nice Timber Chain Whirling Death. IG take the first tower of the game, bot tier 1, and they're probably going to take the bot tier 2. Fluff and Stuff, he's rotated in, but he's only level 3. He's got to be really careful here. He's going to toss him back. There's actually a missed send back. They were going to put it on Ferrari, but now Ferrari's going to get shackled up and not going to get sent back by Chuan. Throws out the stun before he goes down, but it's a kill for Liquid. The tower does go down. Does not get denied. Really unfortunate for Chuan there. He did not mean to send back the creep. He meant to send back Ferrari, and if he had sent him back, he would have lived, and that would have been a perfectly fine disengage. So, unfortunate mistake for IG there, especially feeding a kill on Ferrari of all people. YYF has gotten his arcane boots, so that's what he needs to rotate to another lane. Timbersaw, very mana-dependent hero, relies on those arcane boots to do his work. Chuan just hit level 6. He's got his Hand of God available now. Look at the farm on Joe. He's 46 and 11 versus 49 and 14 on TC. And given that there was a tri-lane to start off here for IG, I think this is really good for Joe. Question for me will be when does he look to join the rest of his team? Because there's, with a mid alchemist, no levels in Grievel's Greed, they're looking to group up and fight earlier on rather than later. Chuan has 2 centaurs. He hasn't hit level 7 yet, so he doesn't quite have that 3rd creep, but this is enough to try and take down this tower. The anti-push from Liquid is okay. They've got Power Shot and Fade Bolt, which are pretty decent. Joe, he joins mid. He pops the Dragon Form. He's ready to help his team take down this tower. The Fortify is available. And meanwhile, TC up at top, as well as Korok down at bottom. Getting some damage onto these towers, making sure that IG is not getting
Radiant's bottom
this
tower
damage
is
onto
under
mid for
attack.
free. And when you push against a Treant Protector, you really have to make sure that you're going all the way and getting the tower. You can't just deal damage, otherwise it's all going to get healed up by the living armor.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
I have to say, this Chakram is one of the most OP things in the game right now. From super long range at very fast speed, you can hit almost anyone you want to target. Actually, there's a solo kill down at bottom. Korok sticks around too long. And he can't go up toe-to-toe against a Dragon Knight. He's too tanky. And Slark is pretty decent versus... one thing I didn't consider was the essence shift from Slark. Really good versus strength heroes. Both Alchemist and Dragon Knight, the more auto attacks they take from Slark, the more HP they're losing, because he takes one of each stat for every auto attack. So very effective versus strength heroes in particular, because they're losing both damage and HP. But not this early in the game. It's not going to be effective that early on. Chuan's farm is pretty decent now. He's got level 7, and he's just about to get his mechanism, which is really what IG needs to make these pushes work. There's just enough anti-push for... Oh my god, it's another solo kill. Ferrari with a DD takes down Weaver. That's pretty bad for Liquid. TC is the most important hero for them, and looks like
I know I can trust you.
this is probably an Aquila that he's building. So I was about to say, it's like, what the... Didn't know what the Perseverance and Sage's Mask was building into. So he's going for a Lincoln Sphere this game, and we'll stop for an Aquila. Could also be a Italian. But great solo kill for Ferrari and double damage on Alchemist. Scary prospect with Chemical Rage popped. Ike's Mike is still really behind on levels. He's level 4 now at 12 minutes in. That's it's not having levels in living armor, and Overgrowth has its utility in this game too. Maxed out the Timber Chain on Timbersaw. We'll get more in Whirling Death as soon as he gets more levels. I do hope. The other reason I just don't like the Max Timber Chain in this circumstance is that Whirling Death is a great farming ability, and Timbersaw needs to farm as much as possible in the first 10 to 20 minutes of the game. That's his time to get his farm, to get his core items up. Usually it's been a Bloodstone. I think that's really the only build I've seen on Timbersaw so far. There are other possibilities, but it just seems to be the most favorable. I did see a Vanguard on a Timbersaw. Don't know who built it, but it happened. Korok would love to... Seems like they were thinking about going on Joe, but he's just way too tanky. He's got Treads, Bracer. There's going to be 2 Shadow Blades up on IG pretty soon here. Ferrari, he's very close to his Shadow Blade. Pops Concoction, TT. He's gets stunned up. Does he have the time lapse? Yes, he does, but doesn't able... Wow, I can't believe it. It was so close. Faith finishes him off with a Soul Assumption. Well played there by IG. Gets netted up, pops a Sentry down, follows up with a Concoction, and he's just stunned for too long. Perhaps should have time-lapsed out of that ensnare.
Dire's top tower.
Down at bottom. Ooh, Joe, he's being dived on here, but there's immediate TPs back from IG, and IX Mike is just going to end up feeding a kill here. Korok escapes, okay, but a failed gank onto Joe, and it looks like IG will take the top tier 1 anyways. They'll use the Fortify to delay this as long as possible. Liquid wanted to delay the rotation mid so they could potentially find a trade, but it's just not going to happen. So that's 2 towers in favor of... Ooh, Shackle does not land on Joe. TC wants to dive this. This is the same aggression that we saw in the previous game, and I don't think it's going to pay off. Really has to be careful.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
And especially diving onto a Dragon Knight, I mean, what is that going to do? Mid tier 1 does go down, however. TC picks up the last hit there, so his rotation does pay off. IG are not mobile enough to get back down there, and I guess you could say that Fortify does pay off in the end because they get the mid tier 1.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
Boba, he's working on his mechanism. It's going to be a little bit before he has it. Unless it's on the courier right now. The headdress is, so he's actually fairly close. A lot of ways to go. IG, they'll group up mid. They know there's no Fortify, and they're not feeling too nervous about trying to challenge this. And meanwhile, TC's up at top. He is doing the farming that he should be doing this game. That's very important. Joe doesn't have a dragon form at the moment. 20 seconds for that. And where is Ferrari in the middle of all this? Oh, he's coming from behind. He's going to land a concoction on Fluff and Stuff. Nice double shackle from Bulba, but that's just going to delay further aggression from YG. And good wraparound from Ferrari. Uses the Shadow Blade to great effect on its first appearance, and could allow IG to continue pushing here. They have really good push. The familiars, all the Chen creeps, plus Dragon Knight. It's gonna be mid tier 2 dropping. IG looking really strong. They're taking a huge advantage in this early game, and they really want to force Liquid back off of their side lanes rather than having to rotate to defend their towers. They say let's just push in and force Liquid to back off, which they're going to have to. Hand of God gets used to keep this push going. They could get the tier 3 here. There's no Fortify available for about 2.5 minutes. And down goes the mid tier 3. 16 minutes in. Are they going to continue this push? IG. Nice double shackle. I don't know that they can continue this push. It's very risky, but look at the racks drop. It's 16 minutes in. There needs to be more rotation back. TC cannot be pushing this tower. It's not a fair trade. Ferrari starts charging this stun, but he gets shackled up. It's going to be a self-stun. Mechanism will keep him up for the time being. Chakram, nicely placed. And Ferrari gets sent back. He's going to be okay. So, great work from IG. Now, Liquid, they do get the bottom tier 1 and the top tier 1. They find the trades they were looking for, but man, it was risky. Wow. I mean, 500 HP on that Rax. If IG had suicided for that, they potentially could have gotten it, but it was a little too risky. And I think it was a wise idea to back off. And they managed to do it without losing anybody, which is the important part. So that's going to leave IG in a fantastic position in this game. 7,500 gold, almost 7,500 experience, and Liquid are really on the back foot here. Slark is not a great comeback hero. He needs to snowball. And unless he's finding pickoffs, which he's not going to this game, IG have a very team fight oriented lineup, and it's just really hard for Korok to be in these fights and not dying. He's only got 1,000 HP. And all it takes is a sentry to undo the effectiveness of that Shadow Dance. It is pretty critical that Liquid got those towers. I think if they didn't get them, they would be in a much worse position right now. They're still not feeling too hot, but they at least have a hope here. Now Liquid, they're grouped up at top. They're going to be forced to all teleport back. That's a hefty cost. And IG, I like this pressure that they're putting up. They're not giving Liquid any room to breathe, and they know that the Fortify has another 45 seconds before it's back up. They could potentially take this Rax, depending on how this goes. There's enough creeps here. A nice double shackle from Bulba. Overgrowth from IX Mike. Into the middle of everything. Slark jumps in, but Korok immediately goes down. He just cannot tank the damage like that. Immediate buyback from him. However, IX Mike goes down. IG are still left standing, and they force out. Oh, TC, he's in the middle of everything, is not able to time-lapse. Korok jumps in, finds himself a kill on Chuan, is able to get back out. There's a buyback from IX Mike, but Korok, if he goes down here, yes he does. The Timber Chain from YYF finishes him off. Liquid are looking really to be on the edge here. Joe, he's making sure to keep up the damage on this Rax. Fluff and Stuff, he steps too far forward, he goes down. More buybacks from Liquid. Oh, a big concoction onto Bulba. He's going to go down as well. He buys back. It's a total set of buybacks from Liquid. Can they get back in time? They've delayed long enough for the Fortify, which will slow down IG. They're dropping low, and without Chuan here, there's no mechanism. Hand of God is on cooldown. Can they get it in time? There's a nice double shackle from Bulba. YWF is going to go on to Bulba, try and chase him off. One more right click, and he does go down. TC, he jumps right back into the fight, and he dies. 19 minutes into the game, it's 15-3, and IG have taken their first set of racks. No matter how many double shackles Bulba gets, it just does not appear to be enough. There's a send back from Chuan. YWF will be safe, and Liquid are looking pretty bad here in Game 2. 10,000 gold in favor of IG, 10,000 experience. It's IG's game to lose now.
Regeneration.
Wow, that was a very close fight all around. I think a lot of bad positioning from Liquid in that fight. Fluff and Stuff stepping too far forward. Korok jumping into the middle of the fight, just turned himself into this great big bullseye, and he went down almost instantly. He can't step into the middle of all of these, like all of these Chen creeps, the familiars, not to mention Joe and Ferrari. There's just so much damage that's very easy. It's not even burst damage, but at this stage of the game, at 20 minutes in, all of these creeps, the familiars, they hit hard. And he does not have the survivability to make this work. He's also got a Vlad's. I don't understand the Vlad's pickup here. It's kind of a desperation, trying to give more armor to his team, but that's not going to, doesn't increase his survivability. Could have something that actually gives him HP. There is nobody that can stand in the front here for Liquid that can soak up hits while the rest of the team does their work. At TC, until he has a lot more HP, he needs more than just a Lincoln Sphere in this game. I think a BKB honestly might be required. Otherwise, wow. IG, they're not going to stop the aggression, and no reason to, really. They're this far ahead. They know that Liquid are not able to stop the push, and they know that the Fortify is again not available. Fluff and Stuff, he steals some Acid Spray. That's a pretty good steal, actually, given this circumstance. Nice double shackle from Bulba on Ferrari and YYF. They're doing as much as they can, but a stun onto IX Mike. The Hand of God is used. IX Mike is not able to get his overgrowth off. Korok, he's not able to use the Shadow Dance to much effect here because there's a sentry here from IG. Oh, there's a stun onto Bulba. The Chakram flies through, and TC, he gets Timber Chained. He has to run back. Wow. IG, they're going to take the bottom tier 3, and the racks are soon to follow. There's no more buybacks from Liquid at this point. So the bottom melee soon to fall, and I think that's going to be it here for Liquid in the group stages. There's an overgrowth from IX Mike doing what he can, but he's probably just going to feed another kill to YYF. Actually, it goes down to Alchemist. Korok kill drop as well. Wow. TC is doing what he can, but I mean, he's not even finding any return kills here. He just doesn't have the damage. Wow. IG look amazing in these two games. This is the IG I am more familiar with, that I once knew, that I remember from TI2. But I think, I mean, there were some big misplays from Liquid here. Their positioning in these fights has not been ideal, and feeding up any kills when you're on the line like that, unacceptable. TC could find a kill on Chuan here, although it's likely that he's just going to get stunned up and he's going to die. Faith is on a monster kill. This Visage has been doing quite a lot for this game in IG. He's actually 8-0-7. Man, I don't know why it takes me so long to find heroes on the scoreboard. Liquid called the GG. 23 minutes in. It's 20-3. Wow. What a performance from IG. They keep up some intense aggression, and that Timber Saw, really everyone on their team pulled their weight. Big time. I was a little concerned for IG with YYF at the top, but I guess, I mean, he wasn't concerned about getting farm. They were interested in grouping up, and if you're going to do that, then the Timber Chain that's the bee's knees. And he got all the levels he needed to get more levels in Whirling Death anyways. So it ended up not making a big difference. The tri-lane at bottom for Liquid didn't quite succeed. I think it was kind of dubious anyways. It's important to challenge an Alchemist farm, but there's so many other heroes in IG. I kind of feel like challenge the Timber Saw. If you make him useless, that's a pretty valuable component for IG, and it makes you. I mean, you are going to lose towers, but I mean, they were going to lose towers regardless. And the Slark pick, I think, was probably a big mistake from Liquid. The Treant Protector also, the Living Armor does nothing to stop pushes. He relies on there being good versus split push, not versus hard push. And the Treant Protector didn't pay off. The Slark really had no impact in this game. And Korok did what he could, but I think up against an Alchemist, he's not going to win that matchup. The Living Armor is not enough to overcome that imbalance. So relying too much on the living armor from Trinity Protector, putting him in aggressive trialing so he doesn't get the levels, makes living armor even that much less useful. Liquid lost a lot of their lanes, and they just got heavily pushed in. So great performance from IG. Liquid will now go into lower bracket, IG into the upper bracket. They can breathe a huge sigh of relief. And Liquid, I'm expecting another fuck you China tweet from IX Mike.